If I were a designer who wanted to work with a brand, or if you were a designer who had used a brand and you see that they're exhibiting, bring over your iPhone with your portfolio and say, look, I used your product, and we will roll out the red carpet for you. Even if you don't want to collaborate right now, we will still ask you, can we put you on our list? Would you like to learn more? Can we collaborate in the future? We'll have the conversations, and now you've made a good connection.
Hey, y'all, you're listening to The Designer Within, Designer Edition, and episode number 62. Welcome to the Designer Within podcast, the podcast where creativity meets intention and great design in your home and life goes way beyond aesthetics. I'm your host, John McClain, an interior designer, business advisor, and full believer in the power of intentional design to inspire a better way of living. Whether you're a homeowner looking to elevate your space, a design professional striving to grow your business, or someone ready to create a more fulfilling life, this podcast is for you. We're here to explore the art of design, the business behind it, and the mindset that fuels it all. Because great design isn't just about what's on the outside, it starts from within. So let's dive in and discover the designer within you. Hello, my friends. Welcome back to another episode of the Designer Within podcast. This is a designer edition episode. So all of my interior designers and creative people, listen up. This one's for you. And actually, I say it's a designer episode. To be honest with you, it could apply to almost any industry because today on the episode, we're going to dive deep into the world of brand collaborations, PR strategies, and invaluable advice for any creative looking to elevate their projects and visibility. I'm so super excited to have my guest, Jocelyn Hutt, on today. Jocelyn is truly a seasoned marketing and PR expert. She is so great. She is open, she is honest, she is truthful. She is giving you a master class today. I'm telling you, you guys, it's so many good, juicy nuggets of information in here today. You're going to want to listen to this 2 or 3 times, and please take notes because Jocelyn and I are dropping some amazing learning lessons about how to effectively partner with brands. We talked about the importance of storytelling in your design projects and the timeless value of both regional and national PR. We talk about how both of those are important. So whether you are a design professional aiming to grow your business or interested in how just to better promote your work, this episode is for you. And it is packed with actionable tips and insider knowledge to help you succeed. If you know anything about me, you know that marketing and branding and public relations is just something that I could talk about all day. I think it is just a fun and interesting topic. I love partnering with brands on my own projects. I love learning how to better get PR for myself and for brands that I work with. And so that is why today's conversation was just easy peasy lemon squeezy for me, you guys. It was so much fun. And I think that comes across in our conversation. I've known Jocelyn for a long time and we have worked together on lots of projects as well. That is why I trust her implicitly when it comes to sharing all of this valuable information with all of you. And I hope that you can learn a bit from some of the tips that I drop inside of the podcast as well. So let me tell you a bit about Jocelyn so that you know her bio before we get into the interview. For more than 20 years, Jocelyn Hutt has been involved in the design industry on the editorial and the PR marketing side, which she feels gives her a unique ability to act as an agent on behalf of clients. Never far from a keyboard, that is true. She describes her role as being the caretaker of clients' legacies. Connector and networker, she uses her natural curiosity about people, places, and products to find common ground with everyone. So, without further ado, I'm going to stop babbling because Jocelyn is a guru when it comes to PR and marketing, and I want her to showcase all of her expertise with you today. Jocelyn, welcome to the Designer Within podcast.
Thank you.
I am happy for you to be here. As I mentioned to you just off stage just now, you are my first marketing and PR expert on the podcast. And you know that this is a passion of mine. I love all things marketing and all things branding and all things PR. It excites me to no end. So I'm so happy you're here. I just said in my intro about you and your bio, but I always want people to hear it in the words of my guests. So tell them about yourself and how you got into this fabulous industry of branding and marketing and PR.
All right. In the 80s, I thought for a hot minute that I actually wanted to be a designer and took some classes and courses at the New England School of Art and Design, in fact, and did a little bit, but I quickly realized I loved the products more than the rest of the design industry, so to speak, or trying to find the clients or working with clients. But I found that I was obsessed with like researching everything from cove base for carpeting to like stair treads for commercial work or the right fabrics. And I segued from that because, again, back in now it's like the 90s, there was a website called Home Portfolio, which was, as I call it, sort of house before house. It was the first product database. It did not sell products. It was just there for you to search and save products and maybe go to the brick and mortar. I ended up reaching out to them and ended up becoming the editor of that website and was there for 8 years, where again, I was able to just indulge my obsession with products. It was a curated site and I would go to High Point or I'd go to ICFF and all the shows. This is how long ago that was, before people could just send me their JPEGs. They would send CDs of their catalogs and we would upload them to the site and tag it so you could search. That is really a long time ago. And from there, that website sadly was sold. And then it was eventually, I think it's no longer even around. So I segued to the sort of opposite side. From editorial, I went to PR and marketing because I knew already the brands and I knew the agencies that had been pitching me about these brands, and started working for an agency. And listen, I always loved a good story. I knew I could write. Over the 8 years I was with that agency, I learned really the basics of PR and using previous marketing that I had I used to work in the computer industry for Home Portfolio. So I had some marketing background there and it just evolved.
Aren't our journeys just fun when you step back and look at it? You're like, huh, that happened because of this, and then that led
Right.
to this. You couldn't lay out necessarily the
No,
pathway that any of us are going to follow, but somehow
no.
they all interconnect to each other, right?
They do. And I still love, as a friend of mine said, she's like, oh my God, you have 100 adjectives to describe a toilet. And I'm like, I probably do, because it's my job to encourage the editors to write about that toilet or that faucet, right?
Yeah, I love it. And then next week you'll have 105. There's 5 more brewing right now, I'm sure.
I never tire. And that's how I know I'm doing the right thing.
It's so
I
wonderful.
am still blown away when I go and see something interesting, or if I'm walking around, I'm like, that could be a faucet. Wow, that should be a fabric or that. Yeah.
Mm.
As a designer, you're constantly becoming inspired.
I never thought about that. You're right. I just came back from Italy and everywhere I was looking was just inspiration on the design avenue of things. But I never really put myself in your shoes thinking that you're also walking around with the same
Always.
wide eyed wonder, looking at things and probably just like, oh my God, click ideas in your head, right?
If it stops, that's when I'll know I'm done,
Wow, that
right?
is so intriguing. I love that. And I think that inspiration can come really from anywhere for so many things, but that's a whole other topic. But I love that you're being inspired by the products that you're seeing. And in conjunction with that, the designers behind that and the
Oh my
products in the rooms, right? It's all
It
interconnected.
it never gets tiring. It's still, again, inspiring. And I am always surprised, actually, if something completely shocks me. I'm like, I hadn't thought of that. That is incredible. When you think
Mm-hmm.
of actually some of the products or the design, we know some designers who I look at their work and I'm like, how did you
Right.
ever come up with that solution or that idea? And luckily had a client who was like, yes, please.
Yes.
Isn't that the best of both worlds?
Yeah, the carte blanche is a great place to
Oh,
be when and if that happens. So for your company now, tell
mhm.
everyone what you specialize in and what type of work that you do and types of products that you work with right now, and basically just the gist of who you are as a
Yeah.
company.
So the Hutt Group, which is not even 2 years old, we are a boutique PR and marketing agency, and we do everything that bigger agencies do for clients. We do social, we do PR, we do marketing, we do lookbooks, we'll do e-blasts, we'll do social, we'll do your website, we'll come up with your press kits and tell your stories. Because of the work that I had done previously with Home Portfolio and then previous agencies, we are primarily in the, I'll say, luxury building product vertical, primarily also kitchen and bath, but we do have a wonderful custom rug collection
Mhm.
client whom I love. And we do work with some designers or design build or architects. It's basically the whole design world.
I love that. Yeah, because again, the interactivity is there between all of it. And I think a lot of designers have this dream of having a product line down the road anyway. So
You
yeah,
can do that better than I.
yeah, it's not always the silver lining with that, but it is a good place to be and a good ambition to have.
Oh,
But
for sure.
so when a designer
Mhm.
is to the point in their career of working with someone like yourself or any PR company, how do they know, first of all, that they're ready? Like, what do they need to have built
Right.
up to come to you? Or, and I have a lot of brands who listen as well on the podcast. So maybe they're listening and they're like, okay, I really need to level up my marketing too. What do you look for when someone comes to you, knocks on your door and says, I would like to work with you? Do you have any sort of checklist and guidelines that you follow that you know that they're ready?
Not per se, but here's what I would tell people because of course selfishly, I think everyone should work with an agency. I think when you're at the point when it comes down to a little bit of the time value of money, if you are spending all of your time trying to do PR and marketing and service your clients and find new clients and try to pitch products or projects and you're not getting anywhere, you feel like you're just spinning in place, you should talk to an agency. It doesn't need to be a big agency. The reason people work with agencies is having a built-in marketing department. We could talk about the money later, but it's like if you think of hiring your own marketing person, guess what? If you work for an agency, you have an entire department literally at your beck and call because we know it's a 24/7 lifestyle, right? The expertise, the media connections, crisis management, objectivity, I think this sort of plays into it. I know everybody thinks all of their projects, like their children, are equally beautiful. You might want third party to tell you, not this year, not quite there yet, in the best possible, most loving way possible. And so that is what working with an agency is. We are your default marketing and PR agency, and it becomes such a personal relationship.
It
People.
is, and I've seen how you work with brands, and I've seen, and you and I have worked together on countless
Mhm.
projects as well.
Right.
I see the passion that's there, and when you say that it is literally part of you, I really think it's in your DNA. Like, honestly, like it literally is a part of who you are, and I don't think you can ever turn off that side of your brain. First of all, so that's to you personally. I think that's just
Thank you.
a big
Yeah.
credit to you that you just do such a good job with that. But the other part of that as well is, and you brushed on it just a bit, but I think the relationships that agencies
Ugh.
like yourself have are priceless. It is priceless for your clients, for you to have this 15, 20-year backup of relationships that you have cultivated and developed. Because I'll just tell you, when I'm out here and I'm there and I mention you, of course I know Jocelyn. Of course I know. Like everybody know who you are because you have integrated yourself into the industry so well. So talk to me about those relationships and how that really does help your clients too.
It is a relationship business on all sides. It doesn't matter if you're talking to an editor or manufacturer's rep or the showroom people where you buy your products or even look at your products, and of course the brands themselves. I have stressed this to every agency I've worked with, clients who left agencies, like they didn't
Mhm.
feel like they were getting that personal one-on-one input. It takes, particularly on the media side, with people moving around so much, with magazines closing and then reopening, and
Yeah.
it takes a really long time. And it is, of course, for any agency, our database of media is our gold. We work on it every day. We build it every day. We send things out. We try to ask the editors, are we doing okay? Are we giving you too much information? Not enough, please. And we work very hard at trying to respect their time, which is what, if we talk about pitching later, that's the big thing. You need to be patient, but you also need to really respect their time. And it's the ongoing situation. Joan Rivers once said, you need to be nice to everybody on your way up, everyone from the doorman up, because on your way down, you'll want to. And I'm like, that is so true, which is why I have very close relationships with, again, the manufacturers' reps for my brands. They're the foot soldiers. They see everything out there. They're out all the time. So I try to listen and respect everybody.
I never thought about you going so granular as to even speaking with the reps, but that makes total sense because they are the front
Yes,
line, right? They're the
they
front line
are.
of the business.
They
And
are.
yeah, do they help you glean any information about maybe altering things? Like if when you're getting this feedback from people. So let's say you go into a project with a client and you're like, I see you, I understand you, I know what you should have, and the client says, yes, I agree with that. How often do you have to pivot that to based upon the worldly situations, based upon the client's needs, based upon feedback that you've been given from some?
If I think that's something that's going to be holding the client back, I'll tell them right away. I'll
Mm,
just say, listen, I was just at a showroom and here's what I'm hearing. And I don't know. And I'm just reporting that to you. Your manufacturer's rep was not there, or they did not give them the most up-to-date information, or the designers are bitching about X, Y, or Z. Can you have, yeah. So I try to be the eyes and ears when I can. The hardest conversation with any client is to tell them that their photography needs to be better. That is a very hard conversation. Also, like your projects, you love all your children the same, but yeah.
Yeah, they come to you with this little portfolio, this little I just picture like a manila envelope with all these little pretty pictures in it, and you're like, "Okay, we can use 10% of that, and let's just reshoot 90%." I know, and it's true, but that's the reason for having an expert and a professional
That's
like
right.
yourself and your
That's
company
right.
is to do that. So when you say there's a team of people behind the scenes working for you, that is what you do, and so I think that part of that mutual respect comes from the client saying, "Okay, Jocelyn, I see you, I hear
Right.
you, let's make that change."
Yeah.
Do you get a lot of flack from people who are like, "No, we just spent $10,000 on these photos," right?
Well, this is why. So I have a partner who is our creative director, and we would not be an agency without him. When people used to say to me, "How come you're not on your own?" And I'm like, I could do a little freelance, but I don't know Canva. I don't know InDesign. I don't know Photoshop, but Michael does. And Michael has the greatest, softest touch. He has to give feedback because he speaks the language of graphic design, where I will always edit your writing or have mine edited. I'm not that egotistical to think my writing's that amazing, and which is why Michael and I are such a great team. But I will always send him in, like, okay, you need to tell them this e-blast's not really. And he just has a very gentle way of doing it, again, because he's speaking the language of
Isn't that
graphic design.
great? That's great to have someone who can not the good cop, bad cop necessarily, but the good news, bad news situation,
Oh,
right?
he doesn't
Be
know,
that
or he'll try. We've had clients where like, oh, can you try to fix it? And he'll try to when we're submitting for awards. Michael, let me put it this way: Mike, there isn't an image that comes in or out of our agency that he does not touch in some
Mm,
way. It could be something as simple as formatting it for various platforms,
mhm,
square,
mhm,
horizontal, or literally changing the wallpaper on the
mhm.
background. We don't need wallpaper. Let's just make it white or
Right,
whatever.
right.
Right. That is a lot of what. Again, that's what he does. He
Yeah,
makes it
I
much
I
better.
know Brene Brown has a quote, it's something like "Clear is kind," and I think that being clear and giving clarity to people about what you look for in what they're needing to give to you to make them successful,
Right.
it's not a harsh it can be harsh to say, but and that's even to us for clients. Like, I can see how you love your grandma's dresser, but it is not the right piece. So, Jocelyn, on the subject of what you're looking for when you're wanting to partner with a new client and also what that new client needs to have in mind, there are so many things that I would think you would look for when you're considering partnering with someone and working with someone in your firm. But tell me about what you look for. And then I know we touched on photography earlier, and so we
Right.
can piggyback off of that. But tell me what you look for and then some specifics so that people can actually start to prepare for that.
Okay. Whether it's a brand or a designer or architect, I feel compelled to help everybody. If you call me or you want to work with us, you have to know that we really do want to help you be the best brand or designer you can be. I do want to clarify something I said, lest I sound cavalier. People spend a lot of money on photography. When I said not all of your children are equally beautiful, the reason you work with a third party or an agency is because you'd want me to say that I see something, you may want a project A, but I might see something in project B. This is really intriguing to me. Tell me what the challenges were here. I see 5 different ways we can split this up. And we'll pitch this room, we'll pitch this. You use sustainable products here. You used a really inventive or creative solution here. And so, you're too close to the projects usually, which you have to be. But I'm close to the editors whom I know, and I know what they're looking for. Somewhere in the middle, we meet. The best clients are the ones who take their ego out of it for that moment and let us help them choose the projects, products, or brands, or even themselves to pitch them in the way that we think will get them the best result.
And I would think that's helpful for people listening because you're right. We do get very close to our projects and
Mhm.
they are our babies and we are birthing that baby on that final installation. And we're like, oh my God, she's here. Isn't she the most beautiful thing in the world? But I love that there's this objective opinion in your eyes where you can sort of pull back and say, okay, that's great for this. This could work for that. But also, does it depend on the needs at the time? Because maybe at this point in the industry right now, sustainability is important. So let's focus on that project. And then the other one could be used at a later date for something else? Or does that play a part in how you choose projects as well to promote?
Yes, very much. It is a combination of you're too busy doing the work. I'm always sussing out what's going on in the industry as a whole, right?
Mhm.
You want us to be both looking at things from 60,000 feet up and also the details. Because we have every editorial calendar of every publication that we can get our hands on, we know what they're looking for. And so it's easier for us to see that in your project. Let's use sustainability again and plug it in. For example, we know Metropolis magazine, that is their number one mission, is that they promote sustainable design. Anytime I can pitch or plug that in for a certain month, I'll try to do it. Again, but yes, I want it to be timeless and yet timely.
That's great. That's really helpful. I also have learned over the year to not just photograph the entire room as a whole, like get those specifics. Look at the appliances, look at the faucets, look at the rug that you use, right? If I were to give a piece of advice to people, it would be to remember the details in your space. First of all, choose a great photographer. Like that's number one, right? Find a great photographer, but also direct the photographer and say, you know what? I want to possibly promote this particular product and let's go into detail. Let's put some vegetables frying on the range and make sure that we can show that later, or let's zoom in on the finish of that faucet
Yes.
or that tile, right? Because those are things that you're there, you're shooting it, and you already have them in your repertoire when you're done, and then hopefully they're good enough for you to use for your promotional side of things. Does that make sense or no?
I love that idea. And this is what I know about you. When you have a photographer, your list of art direction or shots is probably way longer than theirs, as it should be. But this leads me to my other soapbox, if you will, because
Mhm.
there's that saying, whatever, ABC, always be closing. Mine is always be collaborating. Oh my
Ah.
gosh, always be collaborating. If you are working with a brand, and you should, we could talk about that. Most definitely, when you're taking photographs, the brand is going to want as many detail shots of their beautiful faucet or tile as you can provide. And in fact, it's most likely that it's in the contract between us. That is an unsort of sung aspect to help designers elevate themselves. As a publicist who works with brands, we're always scouring Instagram posts. If you've tagged our client, you will probably get a DM from us right away saying, thank you. Can we either repost or would you possibly use our product in your next project? So that is my number of advice, other than, as you said, hire a great photographer.
Yeah, I
Right?
love
Because
that.
it's a force multiplier.
It really is.
Then you got the power of, the brand and its PR agency. We will do a case study. We will pitch your project if you
Mhm.
use their product.
Ooh, there's so many good things in there for people to extract and remember because it lets them on the inside of your brain of what you're looking for on behalf of your brand. And let's just talk about brand collaborations now that we're on that subject, because I have found that, as you know, we've worked together on some things,
Mhm.
but as you know, I love brand collaborations. And I think that it's a no brainer. It is a win win for every single person involved. Like as a designer, we love the product. We've used the product probably multiple times, and we just want to let the world know this is a great product because a lot of the general public look to designers for inspiration and what are we using. Even if they're not working with a designer, just as a consumer, they love to know what designers are using, right? So that alone is a huge aspect of how many legs these photographs can have. What I love about brand collaborations is that if you're lucky enough to get it on the upfront, right? So if you're lucky enough to partner with an agency like yourself before you do the photography and before you start working on the project, that is ideal. But I also love that you gave some tips on like if you didn't work with a brand prior, then
Yes,
here's what you need to do.
that's
First of
right.
all, the photography. And I think video is important these days for that
Yes.
sort of thing. Video is really coming into play in a lot of ways. So if you're all set up doing your photography and you have everything beautiful, the flowers are there, the wine glasses are there, the fruit is on the kitchen counter, go ahead and hire a videographer as well. That will allow you to have more things in your arsenal to promote. But the thing I wanted to remind people is that you said if you're not currently working with a brand, tag that brand in your post because it draws more eyeballs to that for everyone. Have you had brands not even aware of a certain designer and then suddenly they see their products in their projects and then the brand is like, wow, I really want to work with them? Has that ever happened?
Here's the drudge work of marketing or PR is that we go through the magazines and under the source, if I see,
Oh.
in a kitchen project or bathroom or whatever, and I'm like, oh, they sourced my client's tub. Let me reach out to that architect or designer. Hi, I see you use my client's tub. blah, blah, blah. That's in print, which is a harder find. But online, if they haven't tagged it and I'm just seeing it in my feed, it's always sad. Like, why didn't you tag us? And sometimes I will reach out and say, is that a stone forest tub in there, that
Mm,
hand carved marble tub? Because we would
mm.
love to work with you again if possible. And this is great for photographers. We quite often will reach out to say, can you give us the name of the photographer? We'd like to buy that image for use
Yeah.
on their site and their marketing materials.
Well, and that's a
Yes.
whole other avenue.
I
What
love
is your
fish.
arrangement with your photographer, right? Like to me, that is I could do like probably 2 hours on that because I know that can get to be a slippery slope of did they approve it? Do you allow it? And I try to do as much of that on the front end with my photography
Right.
agreement to make sure all those T's are crossed and I's are dotted. But what are some of the benefits that you find for a designer, for an architect, for a landscape designer, for whomever to collaborate with a brand? I know immediately some of the ones that come to mind for me, but on your side of things, what are some of the benefits from a designer and architect and anyone else in the industry partnering with a brand and then collaborating with them now and then in the future too?
Quite a few things. Many of the clients would offer further discount, better than you'd even get through your showroom, although many times the brands would prefer you go to the showroom. They'll then try to offer additional discounts. They
Mm,
want you to use their products. We've had designers offer a sneak peek. Hey, we're looking at this finish. What do you think? Or we're going to be releasing a new product in Q2 of next year. Would you like to see it? We're going to send you. You get to be a little bit of an insider. And if they do, for example, a lot of our clients do trips to the factories, of course, and who wouldn't love to go to the Vola factory in Denmark,
yeah.
but or anywhere? I mean, I see that does seem to be a big thing for a lot of brands, right?
Mhm.
They're flying designers everywhere, which is great for both. It's great for the brand recognition. It elevates them, and then the designers become repeat customers, right? You want everyone to continue to use the products and work on projects that will be pitched by us or even by them. If you're working with your own publicist but you're using a product, we're happy to collaborate on that as well. I'm not
Mhm.
going to step on your publicist's toes by saying don't talk to El Decor. If you have a better relationship, please do talk to El Decor. Always be collaborating on my side as well.
Oh, that's really interesting. I never thought about that aspect of you working with someone else's publicist to
Oh,
garner a deal and to promote the product. Because, yes, the designer gets exposure from their project being published in a magazine or wherever, but also your client, your tub or your tile or your faucet or your light fixture also gets promotion simultaneously.
I worked with a very well known architect who had a lighting brand that was my client at the time. I worked hand in hand with his agency where
Mhm.
we shared our lists of like who are we pitching it to. I'm going to do the trades. Okay, you do the shelter publications. We're announcing it this way. And it worked out quite well. We'll
Really?
submit it to the awards, but give me their headshot, that kind of thing. And so yeah, it was like just having an extra set of hands.
And also probably more contacts that you may have, like as you said, more of a contact with Sally, and you may have more of a
That's
contact
right.
with Bob, right? And it just works
Exactly.
out
Yeah.
perfect for everybody.
Hmm.
What would you say to someone? Because I know a lot of people think it's mostly based on social media, but I don't find that to be true. I personally don't think you have to have a million followers to collaborate with a brand or to work with an agency like yourself. Tell me your thoughts on that and what you look for when you are looking at someone. If you are scrolling Instagram and you're like, oh my gosh, there's my tub. Are there any downsides to that? Are people who, might not be as best of a candidate for it as some others?
I would say we look for outside of the number of followers on any other platforms, it's engagement. If you are someone who is taking the time, even if a random follower is like, that's great, and you've engaged with them, I'd rather see that. Even if you only have 200 followers, I want to help you grow. So that is a much better indicator that you're going to work as hard on
Love
behalf
that.
of the brand and yourself.
Ooh, that's so good. That is so good for people who are just starting out or for people who
Yeah,
may have not put as much time into social media. And that's all kinds of social media, Instagram and of course LinkedIn. But I agree. I think that interaction, and I've had people write to me and say, I can't believe that you responded. I'm like, well, I'm a human being. Of course I'm going to respond to your comment. Like, thank you. Because you took time out of your days to comment. That is a big pet peeve of mine on social media is when you see dozens of comments and they're just not even responding whatsoever. That person should be given them a pat on the back for commenting on your post, right? So I think that is great. And also, I think there are that whole micro influencer market of people who are very good on their social media, but they have smaller number of followers. I always tell people if you have 500 followers, would you not be happy if 500 followers were standing in your kitchen at a dinner party and you were telling
that's
them
it.
about your business?
Exactly.
So you have that
And
captive
when
audience.
when you see them at trade shows or conferences, I'm happy to have the conversation always. And if you're not ready, we could talk about doing something next year. Let's talk about it and see what we can do now or later. I would never turn anyone away. I shouldn't say that because we don't like to do the like the pay to play. If it's going to cost us money to put your product or you somewhere else, it's a no.
Agree with
It's a
that.
no
There's
for me, as they say.
I'm with you on that. It just
Yeah.
feels icky to me when it gets into those waters. But you just segued into something that was going to be my next question. The power of in-person meetings and conversations, introductions. We all tend to hide behind our social media platforms sometimes and think that, I can post something and everything's going to change. Yes, it might, and it might catch the eye of someone like Jocelyn, but there's not that guarantee. I personally love a grassroots effort campaign where you are in someone's face and you're shaking their hand and you're saying, "Oh my gosh, I love your product so much." Talk about that aspect of it and just the power of those really great connections that you can only get with someone in person.
Well, that's why I think trade shows continue to this day. During the pandemic, we went into the online version, or everyone thought, okay, it's going to be different now, they're dead. But just like print magazines, no, they are not dead. They've come back, and it is the best way for brands to interact with their clients or potential clients, and for you to see, again, the new finishes or the touch and feel of any kind of product. If I were a designer who wanted to work with a brand, or if you were a designer who had used a brand, and then you're at, let's say, we'll just the kitchen and bath show, I guess, and you see that they're exhibiting, bring over your iPhone with your portfolio and say, look, I used your product, and we will roll out the red carpet for you. Even if you don't want to collaborate right now, we will ask you, can we put you on our list? Would you like to learn more? Can we collaborate in the future? We'll have the conversations. And now you've made a good connection. The same goes with magazines. I know it's harder for designers if you're at a showroom and they're having a panel where the editor of a regional publication is there. You should try to say hello and ask that editor, I have some projects to show you. What's the best way? And I'm telling you, the editor would then say, don't feel like it has to be totally finished. Send scouting shots or whichever rooms are done.
Mhm.
The other thing you have to have in any of this is patience. It could take, right? It could take years to see a project, even if we pitch case studies and they're inundated with beautiful projects. You have to really, just like buying furniture, buy it and then forget about it for like 14 weeks.
That's good stuff. And I think too, add on to that, if you're at a trade show, KBiz or market,
Whatever.
if you don't have that product in your repertoire yet, if you don't have them in a project, but you're in love with it, I would still go up and say, "Oh my gosh, I love your product so much. I have a project upcoming that would be perfect for that. How can we possibly work together?" That is also a way for people to start to work with a brand. As you said, there are incentives that brands give. If you are a collaboration partner with a brand, you can probably get it less expensive if you have a great project they're excited about. And if there's an angle, right? If there's an angle that they've never possibly promoted before. But I do find that if you are, because I know I've seen a lot of tile and a lot of faucets, kitchen, all the things at these trade shows that I'm like, I don't have a project for that yet, but by golly, I'm going to get a project for that because I love it so much. How does that future casting work too?
That's great. And that's the whole reason for designers to go to High Point or shows, because you want that inspiration. If you approach the brand or the brand spokesperson, they'll give you either a showroom or a dealer near you. If you want to see more, since they cannot have their whole catalog of products in the booth, and if you're lucky, it's a showroom that you worked with before. So now again, it's just all about, right, creating and then cementing these relationships.
And I think that everyone has their laser focus on getting a licensing deal with a brand. I don't always think that is the be all end all. I don't think
Right.
that's always the epitome of success with a brand because I've seen designer friends, and I've done it before too, design a vignette at a trade show for a brand, and you are the exclusive designer for that. I've had designer friends, they've designed the entire booth of large brands at trade shows. Their name is slathered all over that, right? So I think there's different ways of partnership. Can you think of any others that would be ideal for designers and architects as far as varying shades of gray for partnerships?
Give that some more thought, unless you want to really collaborate on white papers or articles. Many times editors will ask us, we're doing a trends piece on blah, blah, blah. And I'll say, great, I'd like to submit some quotes. If I know that you've used it, I could say, and I'm going to submit a quote from John because he's used a product in this way, which I think speaks to whatever the article is going to be about.
That's a good point. You can get published in a different way where it's your
Yes.
expertise, you're the authority figure, right? That's
Right.
wonderful. I love it. So when someone's considering working with a marketing firm, a PR firm, and they're thinking, oh my gosh, I think I'm ready. I'm not sure, but they're worried about the financial part of it. What is the financial part and what are some of the costs that someone might incur when they're going to work with an agency such as yourself?
All right, now I'm going to try not to sound like a politician who doesn't answer questions, but we prefer to work on a monthly retainer. It's a specific amount, and it can be anywhere from 5,000 up to 15,000 just for the retainer. You have to really think of it as if you hired a marketing person, what would you pay them?
Mhm.
That's what this is. You're getting my 30 years of expertise, my director's 20 years, my creative director, my intern, you're getting an entire department at your beck and call. And I am telling you, being talked to my client yesterday, there's no such thing as a weekend when it comes to PR marketing. Have we done a one-off project where we're just working with you on one thing? Yeah, probably. For us, that's the reverse of wanting to collaborate with you in the hopes that we do a good job and then maybe you'd hire us as a retainer client later. So I'm always happy to have the conversation. That is the biggest bite. So you do have to look at your budget that way.
Mhm.
The big cost would be, of course, the agency and photography. But,
It's
I
expensive.
know, well, we also have a social media person who works for me. So, that could be part of the retainer, which then just takes all that stuff off your desk. You don't have to think about it anymore, right?
That's very smart because if you look at it in the perspective of adding another team member, first of all, it's a cost, but then going into taxes and benefits and all the things, right? So it's
Right.
great to think that under one umbrella, you could encompass all of those things as a publicist for someone and take care of that. And as you said, it is kind of 24/7 when you guys are working. I've seen it. I know that for a fact. I've submitted things last second because the magazine had something change or needed to be
Right.
adapted. So there's
Right.
always opportunities. But what I love about a publicist and having someone on my side is knowing that workload is taking off my plate. I don't have to put my mental strain on promoting my brand because someone else is doing it for me. And just like yourself, is so passionate about it, more passion than I could ever muster up, even for things we're doing within my company. So I love that there is someone, as you said, who can devote themselves to that client all the time. And if you are a designer, architect, someone thinking, oh, I want to partner with this brand, do you suggest going to your website and other PR firms' website, or do you suggest going to the brand's website to find out how to reach out to that person to start that
I
conversation?
Right. You could go to the brand and ask them, and they will probably refer you to whichever agency they're working for.
Okay.
Or even again on social media. That happens quite a bit where people will just DM one of the clients we're doing social for, and I'm like, oh, they're interested. Let me research that person.
So it
So
doesn't have to be as complicated as we think. It can just
no,
be as simple
no.
as, yeah, just keep it simple, stupid. That's what I tell myself all the time.
Right. We're all friendly here. I promise.
So for people who are there other things that we should look for wanting to get published and for wanting to get our name out there? Are there other things other than I think we've beaten photography into the ground. We've got that,
Well,
right?
that's
So
true.
are there other things that we should consider for that? I love, for instance, and this is very simple, but I love blog writing. And I know that that's a little antiquated, but it's also coming back as well. And what I like about it is, much like social media, it adds to your SEO. And then you could find that person. If someone has a Google alert set up, then it could
Right.
pop up in their inbox. So has that ever, are there little ways to promote their projects too? Like what other things can you think of?
Yes, LinkedIn. LinkedIn
Mm,
is really big. I advise clients, we try very hard not to appear like we're selling. If you have an amazing project that you just finished, you just wrapped it in a bow, put it on LinkedIn. I think, and you touched on it earlier with video, which you could use on LinkedIn, Instagram stories, YouTube. So here's the thing, fail fast. Try it. If it doesn't work, stop doing it.
a good point. And also, I think enjoy what you're doing. Like, for instance, TikTok is not my favorite. I'll just say it's not. I feel like I turn it on and everyone is yelling at me immediately about something. That's what I feel. So, but for me, that's not my avenue. Instagram, I love. LinkedIn occasionally, and then Facebook still. Everyone poo poos Facebook, but I still feel really positive about Facebook, and really the interactions there are substantial when you use Facebook. I just suggest doing what you enjoy, because if you don't enjoy creating that reel or that post or that video, then you're not going to keep doing it. And also, I think the work is going to suffer in what you're putting out there. But
Yeah.
your advice of just kind of keeping it simple is great. And I think that we do overcomplicate it and we think, oh, we have to make this the most perfect video ever. This has to be the most perfect post ever. Done is better than perfect, right? Just get it done rather than try to make it perfect.
Don't let great be the enemy of good sometimes. The other thing I was actually going to recommend is for designers in particular to join other groups of designers,
Mm.
right? Like speaking of Facebook, like Interior Design Community,
Mm.
Lori
Yeah.
Lazar, she's doing an amazing job of
Yeah.
lifting all the designers, giving them tools, and you can ask questions. There are some Facebook groups that I'm a member of, even though I am not a kitchen and bath designer. I look at the questions they're asking each other. First of all, I'm like, you people really are detail oriented. And really, I mean, we're talking eighths of an inch, quarter cabinet. Like, wow. But it's the community. And so I think you will also find opportunities to meet other like-minded people, or an event near you hadn't thought about, or maybe you're not on that list and you want to be on that list. So that, I think, is something that I did not do early on in my career, but now I realize always be collaborating. That's the other side of it.
That's very good. Lori's amazing at interior design community. And I love that community over competition aspect of what we do. I
Yes.
think that's the best way to approach it. And there's plenty enough to go around. What also happens when you start collaborating with a community of people is that other brands and possibly agencies like yourself start to take notice and say, oh, look at that person. They are becoming an authority figure in the industry. And then I think that's another way to take notice. If you see someone pop up on a panel constantly, or they're on a video call, or they're hosting something, or they're always giving good advice on IDC, something like that, I think that's
Mhm.
another way to get yourself noticed. Do you agree with that?
I agree completely. And that costs you nothing.
Exactly. That is completely free. That is your
In the
time and your
in the free
expertise.
column, that is a freebie right there.
Yeah. So we talked about what you look for. One thing I thought was so interesting when our pre-conversation was talking about how to become a publicist favorite, how to become that favorite client of a publicist. What do you look for when you are already working with someone and then they're continuing the relationship with you? How do we really become our PR firm's favorite client?
Wow, that is a great question.
Now's
I
your
know,
chance
right?
to say it.
I do appreciate, and as with everything is a relationship business, right? And so, and I do, the clients that are with me right now, I've known for a very long time, and I get to know them personally as well. You have to trust us. We're not going to embarrass your brand that you've worked hard on. We may throw 5 things out at you and you may say, I hate them all, but go ahead and try, because you know better. And you should have an ego about your area of expertise, but try to be open to the possibility that we might know a little bit more about how to talk about your narrative than you do. You're doing your work. Like you said, you're laser focused. It's an honorable thing for me to tell your story. That's how I view it. You're doing the work. We're then turning that into something and telling the story for you. It's really a great honor. So you have to just trust us. This one piece is appropriate for anyone you're working with or anyone you're pitching, meaning editors. Back to the patience thing. Please have patience. You know that editors are like, please don't follow up. We will contact you. And they really mean it. And I would say if we've sent out a press release on your product, I'll tell you the minute it gets picked up. You don't have to ask me. If you've seen it and approved it and I've sent it out, other than that, just be nice.
I think
Well,
that's a great
I
one.
love all my clients equally. I love all my clients equally.
What's impressed me about a very good agency like yourself and so many others that I've met is that you know the backstory of the client. I have been at a private dinner sponsored by the PR firms, and there was the
Mhm.
brand there. The PR firm knew more about a product and was able to sell that specific chair or whatever we were talking about that night better than the client. And I think that is a piece that people don't think about, is that you really do become a part of the brand and the company and the
Right.
person that you're working with. What do you do to acclimate to that brand, to learn about them, like to learn their story? Because I agree with you. Story
Right.
is the key to someone
Right.
remembering you and remembering your company or your brand. But what do you do as part of your research?
With product brand clients, we take product knowledge. The way
Mhm.
that they train all of their salespeople, we go through that training. It is a process where we have to go through everything that we can about the products, including the price books and the finishes, and learn about them the same way if they were going to install us in a showroom to be a salesperson. That is the first thing we do. With a designer, tell us your origin story, talk about a project where you learned the most, a project you thought was terrible, but again, you learned a lot. And we just kind of keep going and keep going, I guess peeling the onion, because you don't even know what the beauty of some of your projects might be. You might be
Mhm.
telling me again about the wallpaper. And again, I'm looking at the corner of the table or the leg. I'm like, why did you choose that? There's such a beautiful
Mhm.
leg, the curve there. Why did you, and you're like, oh, I totally forgot about that. So, it is our job to just, if the 60,000 feet up is where the editors, we know what they're looking for. The minutia is where we learn the most about you. And it goes into the Rolodex of our brains. If an editor gives me the slightest indication of something they're even thinking of working on, and instantly I'm like going in my head like, that'll work. They haven't seen that. Have they seen that? No, they probably should see that. And that is the conversation going through my head, or with my partner, like with Mario. We're like, okay, that didn't work. What else can we do? And we just go through it.
That's good. I love to have a story. Stories are the things that people remember. I always try on a client's project to figure out what that story is for my client. And then when
Yes.
I come to people who are talented and taking that further, like yourself, I say, here is the story. Here is the angle that I see. Here's the synopsis of this project. Here's what I think might get people's attention. The brands we used, it's designed by a famous architect, the view of the ocean, or we designed this space because the daughter has a learning issue and we tried to resolve that. I suggest starting out from the beginning, from the get-go, and picking up on little nuggets from your clients to build that story. I'm sure that would help you if someone came to you and said, here's what I think would be a great angle. Here's a great story. You can take that and build up on that story too, right?
Absolutely. We had an acoustic lighting client who was telling us about working with a school where some of the children had autism, and noise was a huge issue for them. And so I was like, oh my God, they have to really like build this, in a way that there's not noises like banging, pinging off of, these hard surfaces. I love that. There was a lighting, that's not a client, like a smart home lighting control thing, probably Control 4. And one of their projects that this was fascinating to me. They were working with a client who was very religious. On Friday night for Shabbat, all the lights, you cannot use any electric. And so they had it wired that at sundown, it shut everything down. Where I was like, that is so cool.
See,
Isn't that
there's a
cool?
story for everything.
A story for everything.
Yeah, I look at us as a solution. We're problem solvers for our clients. And then brands are problem solvers for clients and also for designers. As a designer, I love when a brand has addressed an issue that I've been dealing with forever, with the finish on a faucet staining or whatever the issue might be. I love that a brand has addressed that issue. And then as a designer, I can now address that issue for my client too. But I think that whole problem solving aspect of it is really important because, as you said, you look at that and think, oh my gosh, we as designers might take it for granted. We did what they needed. We solved the problem. You might look at that and say, oh my God, that is marketing gold, right?
It is marketing gold. Absolutely. If you are talking to the brand and telling them the challenge you need this solution for, if they've heard it once, they're going to hear it more than once. When it comes time for them to develop a new product, they're going to think about that. And that is sometimes how products are designed.
One little tip that I do too, I come up to a brand and say, you know what, I love your products, but this rug would look so much better if we did this material on it, or this finish would look
Oh,
so much more marketable. Sometimes that will wake up that brand too. Think, oh my gosh, you've been thinking as much about my company as I have. And then that
right.
is a great intro too. If you have something that you're like, oh, this would solve a problem for 10 of my clients right now off the bat. If a brand addressed this issue, come to that brand with that solution. Their ears might perk up and they might be like, oh yeah, perfect. I would love to talk to you more about that. So that could be an end too.
Absolutely. Absolutely. As you
Yeah.
said, it's problems and solution.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
With the outcome being something beautiful, functional, right? Livable, and
Yes.
hopefully long lasting. I'm
Yeah.
not so trendy that next year you'll go, that was a mistake.
Trends are that double-edged sword with me where I'm like, I can see, yes, but also I try to design myself as timeless as possible and as long lasting as possible, right? Because no one wants to rip out the tile in their bathroom 2 years from now, right? Nobody wants to
No.
go down that rabbit hole. So I do think that that's important. One thing you touched on earlier, which I had a problem with when I first started working with PR, was patience. I did it. I know now it
Yeah.
is a long game. You're not just going to send out something and get an answer right away. If someone needs an article written or whatever, those are, of course, are more quick turnaround than getting a full home published in the magazine. But I think that patience is something we really need to drive home to people, for current clients, for new clients, for people who are wanting to work with a publicist and they think that it's going to be an overnight sensation. It's just not. But it doesn't mean you're not working hard behind the scenes.
I know for any client, we have a 3-month honeymoon period where they love us. We're great. And then, of course, they're wondering what we're doing. Meanwhile, again, we're setting everything up from our side. The first month of any relationship, it has to just be really the nuts and bolts, really learning everything. We might be redoing your bio, your press kit, putting things together, doing a contact sheet of the images we want to send to editors or the stories, talking to editors, saying, we have a new client. Would you like to see X, Y, or Z? Yes or no? So yeah, there's always something going on. It's like a monthly report card.
Hmm?
We do reports quarterly,
Oh,
but
good.
previous agencies monthly, and I thought that's really scary. That's a lot of pressure because an editor can change something. I thought for sure it was going in the May issue, and then they're like, "No, we moved it, so now I have nothing to show you for May." But
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, you're at the mercy of the editor or a decision maker at
hmm
whatever outlet you're working with. But what I just want people to remember is that you're constantly working.
thank you.
It really is something that was a hard pill to swallow for me, that it was not going to be overnight success, overnight accolades, whatever. Just give it time. And you're working with people that you trust in this endeavor. Trust them to do what they're doing. To your point about adding it on as another team member, we hire contractors, tile installers, electricians, and plumbers, people who are experts at that. That should also move into your realm of things too when we're considering working with a firm. Do you have any questions that you would have someone ask when they're thinking about working with a firm such as yourself, with an agency? What would I come to you with? What questions would I have coming to you to know that you're the right fit for me?
It's funny because I always ask potential clients, "Have you worked with other agencies?" Because
Mm,
they're, I always want to hear what they liked or didn't like. I would hope that they would ask me what type of clients that I have. How do I like to work? Or that, am I open to learning how they work? If they're a night owl and they're going to send me things in the middle of the night, would we help them with everything from, again, finding a photographer to, can we help them put together an e-blast? Yes, we can do all that. I would want them to ask me to explain in great detail everything that we do for clients and how we work for other designers, how we work with architects. What is the difference? Do we work primarily in the luxury shelter vertical, or if they've done some commercial work, do we have no editors on that side? Have we
mm.
done institutional or educational projects? I want them to get the fullest picture of my world. Did that
That's
answer that
great.
question?
I think that's wonderful because I just want people to have expectations set up, to understand what
Mm,
expectations we are to have when working with you. If you're not primarily print, but they come to you thinking that you're primarily print, for instance, not you specifically, but someone, and but they're more of other media, other outlets, other avenues of PR, then that's not going to be a fit. So I think if the person, just what you're saying is they should know who they are first and what they're looking for, and then just make sure that the firm that they're speaking with knows that they can take care of that for that person, rather than going into it thinking, oh, they're going to get me on a television show. That is something that is a you thing. Going into it as a future client, that is a you thing, to look inspectively, to know what you're looking for, and
right.
then to ask the right questions, to your point, to say, can this other company that I want to partner with supply that need for me, right?
Actually, you brought up a bunch of good points because if they are thinking they only want print or they only want digital, we're fine either way. Just make sure that you let me know. The other touchy subject is when a prospective client says, here are the top publications that we want to see ourselves in. And so that goes back to the let me look at your projects and see if we are there yet. Please also know it could take a year for Arc Digest to even look at it. And that is a tough conversation. I have PR friends who basically say, if you come to me with this list, then I'm not your girl. I'm not the firm
Mm.
for you.
And I think too, don't underestimate the power of regional or local
Oh,
PR versus
absolutely.
national PR, because I've had sometimes even more business and more inquiries from a local publication as a national one.
That is an excellent point. Thank you for bringing that up because, particularly for designers who want more work, and if you are picked up in the regional magazine or go to their events, get on their mailing list, go to their events, you would be more likely to meet other potential designers or showrooms that you might want to work with. I think it really helps. The regional stuff is very important.
Even as simple as if a brand has a newsletter that they send out to their database, and it could be 20,000 people, and they mention your project in that newsletter or give a quote in that. I think that even has a lot of legs to it. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, don't hang your hat only on an
Right.
AD or, Elle Decor or whatever. Yes, those are fantastic, but I know from firsthand experience the value of these smaller things that can turn into much bigger things down the road. And I know you, as a PR firm, have those contacts as well.
It supports the showrooms, the local showrooms, as well as the local designers. So yes, I have an entire list of the city.
Yeah, exactly. I just wanted people to hear it from your own lips because I wanted people to know that it does run the gamut of contacts that you are nurturing and growing. It's not just talking to the big boys. It's also
And if
nurturing that
you're on the
relationship.
cover, if you're on the cover of New England Home,
Yeah.
yay you. That is
Yeah.
a huge accomplishment. Humongous.
Well,
I'll tell you,
I
the
agree.
photographer, he's all, because I know him, he gets excited about that. He's like, they chose it for the cover. So yes, everyone likes the validation. Everyone likes it.
I agree. Even with just I would pay a firm to keep up with the turnover in these brands, because in these magazines, because it seems to be changing so constantly.
Yes.
Someone's being promoted and you're like, oh, now I've nurtured that relationship, but now she's going to be the editor. So I think that is also something that we, as the layperson, cannot keep on top of as well as a firm like yourself. But this has all been so good, so juicy for people to take away. I think that, your highlights on collaboration, brand collaborations, on what you're looking for, what the other person should be looking for, are really good things that people can take now. If they're not ready to work with an agency like yourself, then maybe they could start those steps to do so and baby step their way up to getting to the point where they can.
I really do believe in giving things away. I have a lot of designer colleagues, and because I get a lot of reporter requests, like help a reporter out, I will pass that off. They're not my clients. Just like, this is good for you. They're looking for a kitchen designer to talk about something. There's no reason that I cannot be helpful to you, even if you're not hiring me.
You send me things all the time, and I'm so appreciative
right.
of it. Yes, I'm one of those lucky recipients. But it all goes back to caring. It all goes back to lifting up the industry as a whole, caring about everybody on every level. And I think that when we all look at what we do as helping each other out and promoting everyone at the same time, sometimes even down to the installer, even to the tradesperson who worked on the project, right? I think that is mind-blowing that we can elevate not only the designer who finished it and the brand who was on the products on it, but down to, Joe, who did
Oh my
this
God, the tile
beautiful
installer, please. That person is worth his weight in gold if he's good, right?
Absolutely.
So we all know that.
This is, I think we could talk for hours on PR and
know.
marketing, because it's a passion of mine and I love it. And I know you obviously love it, and as a career choice. But for people who are wanting to know more about your company and about what you're doing and all the good things, where can they find you?
Our website is a little bit more than a landing page, but not a lot more. It is Hutt Group, and you can always email me at Jocelyn at Hutt Group.
Perfect.
John is JOCELYN.
Well, Jocelyn, thank you for sharing your
John.
in today. I know that every listener and viewer on YouTube is going to enjoy this. If it at least gets their mind moving in the direction of the great tips you've given today, that alone as a listener would be valuable, but also to prepare them to the point of calling an agency like yourself and actually working together. So thank you for sharing your knowledge and your insight. Thank you, Jocelyn.
Always great to talk to you, John.
Thanks for tuning in to the Designer Within podcast. I hope you found today's episode inspiring and full of actionable ideas to help you design a better home, a thriving career, or simply a more intentional life. For more tips, resources, and free downloads to support the design of your home or the design of your career, head on over to johnmcclain.co. That's johnmcclain.co. And remember, to make big changes on the outside, you need to start within. Until next time, I'm John McClain. Stay creative and stay inspired.